All right. I mentioned to you off the start of the show that the Niner defense is 30th in points allowed in the fourth quarter under Sorensen. They were first last year under Wilks. I forgot to follow up with the obvious, topic question, which is, Dieter, was it a mistake to dump Steve Wilks for Sorensen? Was Steve Wilks, some kind of sacrificial lamb? Did the Niners downgrade by going from Wilks to Sorensen? Do they upgrade, or do you consider it a lateral move?
I have no idea what Nick Sorensen is yet, and I maintain this week in, week out. I'm looking for an answer, okay? And the longer it goes on, the more I'm leaning towards he's not good at his gig. Now, again, the deficiencies in personnel are pretty significant, more significant than last year, to be sure. Steve Wilks was a bad defensive coordinator, okay? I got a couple of points on this. One, he's playing in 2023, he was playing, pardon me, I get choked up about this, Larry. He was playing a defense.
Emotional. It's very emotional.
God damn it, he was playing Tampa too, Larry. He was playing a defense that was best used in 2003, okay? He's using Fred Warner as a free safety often with his defense. Unacceptable. Two, Steve Wilks had a stick up his ass so high about getting screwed over, and I'm not saying he didn't, over 2 head coaching jobs in Carolina and Arizona. And he was out there trying to prove that he could be a head coach again and again and again. And ultimately, his ego kept getting in the way of pragmatism. Now, Kyle has the same issue at times, but at least Kyle has the track record and isn't trying to get a different gig. He's not trying to prove anything to anyone other than maybe his dad. I'm not sure what's going on there, but ultimately, Steve Wilks is out here constantly trying to promote the resume over, hey, an issue there. So regardless, Steve Wilks, the stick up his ass thing was a real issue. The third part, and this is something I heard in the moment, and this is something I heard a lot after the fact, because boy, God, did they want to tell me, because I had kind of made a stink out of it early. People wanted to tell me all their stories about Steve Wilks. I'll keep 90% of that confidential, but Kyle was spending a lot of time in defensive meetings last year to make sure that they were running competent defenses. Kyle was having to run these. He didn't want to do that. The whole point of a defensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan is he can leave them alone, that he can trust them. When he had to publicly demand to Steve Wilks to come and be on the field, it was done for him. Because not only was Kyle in the meetings because he didn't trust the game plans that were being put out there, he thought they were simplistic, and he thought that they were not correctly derived for the personnel the team had. And then, to have that weird back and forth where Steve's like, I'm not going to do it. I don't need to do it. And Kyle's like, I'm the head coach of the team. You absolutely do need to do this. And it gets drawn out here. It was a real issue. I don't know if Sorensen's good or not. I think that they wanted somebody who at least the defensive personnel knew and liked. I do think that he's an organized person. I do think that he runs a good practice. Everything I've heard is that you're not getting anything past him. He sees stuff. He has everyone ready and able to do it. I question his in-game coaching to this point. And I do think that there is the elephant in the room here, which is I don't know what Brandon Staley is doing, but Brandon Staley was overtly brought in to be the, as I've called him, the shadow defensive coordinator. And it's rather convenient that Sorensen has to wear the brunt of all of the bad stuff that is happening with this defense. He's the coordinator. Such is the responsibility. This is why you get paid more now. But if they were to do something really interesting and creative, and I saw this happening in training camp, there'd be a lot of credit going to Brandon Staley. Oh, Brandon Staley's really interesting. He comes up with these great concepts. He has us so ready. Brandon Staley was getting a lot of credit for shit in the preseason when stuff was looking okay. It was looking like stuff was happening. And as soon as stuff starts going wrong, oh, it's Sorensen, because, well, Staley had the track record of being a good defensive coordinator before, and Sorensen's first go-around on this. I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, but let me put it to you this way. Steve Wilks didn't get fired as a sacrificial lamb. Steve Wilks would have been fired at any point that was the end of the season for the 49ers. If they didn't make the playoffs, they would have fired him. If they did make the playoffs, they would have fired him. And frankly, the game plan of having Logan Ryan be the nickel in the Super Bowl was laughable, to the point where Logan Ryan before the Super Bowl on the side told me it was laughable. He's like, "What are?"
Here's a rule. Here's a rule of thumb. If a guy is on a cruise and you're thinking about signing him, hang up the phone.
Disney cruise.
I don't care what cruise you're on. If you're on a cruise ship, I don't want you around my football team. Because you have really shut it down. You're not in the right mentality. Being on a cruise and that mentality is not conducive to big time football. I'm convinced of that.
Steve Wilks leaned on him because Steve Wilks thought that so many people
he couldn't tackle.
Not only couldn't tackle, but couldn't possibly understand what he was teaching them. Now I'm giving away more than the 10% I promised. But he had open contempt for people on the team, not just players, but coaches, thinking that he was so much smarter than them. They just didn't like Steve Wilks at all. That's why he got fired.
Well, okay, couple things. One, go if you think it's a Niner issue, go Wikipedia Steve Wilks and just do some basic accounting of his career. And what you're going to find is he's been coaching for 25 years. What you're also going to find is he's done it in like 23 stops.
Yep.
He's like literally 23 stops in 25 years. So the guy moves. He's nomadic. That's him. That has nothing to do with the Niners. He was established
you're
as
the asshole.
Well, I'm not saying he's an asshole. I liked him, but you are a nomad, whether you ever coach for the Niners or not. That's what your resume says you are. You're a nomad. A couple things. One, and I've said this a few times, I don't want to bore everybody with the same take, but it was pretty clear to me that the front and the coverage behind it didn't match up throughout good portions of the second half of the year. The Cincinnati game was a ridiculous embarrassment where they were speeding up Burrow up front, but then they were playing soft coverage behind, and then you're just speeding Burrow into these really easy completions, and that's what happened. And they just got destroyed. There was no slowing down the Bengals at all.
Yeah.
But to me, I think of football defense it's not genius. It was when Buddy Ryan introduced the 46 defense, but there's not a lot of innovation in defense. Defense is about athletes who can close it down, and it's about accountability and effort. So if you have athletes and you get them to play with accountability and be accountable and play with high energy and effort, that's the job. And when I saw Givens and Chase Young Cadillacing it in the NFC title game, I'm firing Wilks right there.
Yeah.
If you can't get your guys to play hard in the NFC Championship game, I'm going to go get somebody who can.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as that. You can't have guys dogging it. And he came out. I brought that up to Shanahan, right? I'm like, Kyle, is this your culture? He's like, no, it's not our culture. But I also don't think it was widespread. I think it was just a few plays that you guys, saw. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And the next day when Wilks talked to us, he walked into the room and he's like literally staring right at me talking.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a front and center seat. I was far to the left. He walked into the room and was like, literally started looking right at me and just started talking. He's talking for like the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the press conference, looking all the way to the left corner of the room where I'm sitting. Mm-hmm. So it's like either he was pissed that I brought up that his guys were Cadillacing, or he liked it and now he held me up to a higher level of respect because he was literally addressing me. I really felt like it. Even my son was like, Dad, were you in the corner over there? I'm like, yeah, I was in the corner of the room today. And he stared right at me the whole time when he was talking. But I had a good relationship with Steve. Literally, I asked him tough questions. He gave me good, thought-provoking answers. He knew that I wasn't a stooge. I knew that he's not a stooge. And we got along really, really good. But I never had a chance to ask him,
right,
did I piss you off when I called out your guys? Because in a way, I kind of felt like, why is he pissed at me? He shouldn't be pissed at me because these guys are going to play with their hair on fire in the Super Bowl. Guess what happened? They played with their hair on fire in the Super Bowl. The
Mhm.
Niner defensive effort in the Super Bowl was worlds better than the Niner defensive effort against Green Bay or Detroit. Worlds better. And they had a chance to win. They fired hugely in that game. And then the next week, Dieter, when the mic'd up copy came out, right? What's on the mic'd up copy? A sideline exchange between Chase Young and George Kittle, where Kittle goes up to him, grabs his shoulder pads, and says, "Hey, there's no practice on Tuesday. There's no meetings. There's no nothing.
Mhm.
Everything you got, I need it tonight. I need you to play with your hair on fire. I need you to bring it all night long."
Mhm.
And Chase Young looks at George Kittle, serious as a heart attack, puts his hand on his chest and says, "I won't let you down." And then went out there and played his ass off.
He did.
Played super hard. Played like the Chase Young that we saw at the beginning of his career with Washington. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying I called him out. I called him out, and he responded. Yeah. He responded. So
yes.
I don't know if Wilks was mad or happy with me. He should be happy because his guy, I got his guy to play.
He wasn't.
But I don't think he was, and I don't think that's why he's out. I really don't. I think he would have been out, as you said, no matter what. But his front and his coverage didn't match, and his guys didn't play hard for him, and that means he had to go.
Do you think Steve
and maybe that's
Wilks,
too harsh, but that's
no. I think it's 100% right, and it's ridiculous for relitigating this. But do you think Steve Wilks was looking at you in that press conference because he was happy that you brought it up, or because his boss came to him and said, "What the fuck are we doing here? You need to get your guys to play hard. I can't do it for you." Because I know that second conversation happened.
Everyone's worst nightmares. Larry's blowing his own horn. I don't blow my own horn a lot. Maybe I'm blowing my own horn a little bit on this one. But it's not even me blowing my own horn. I'm just recapping. I'm just an honest person. I'm honest, and I'm being honest. If I thought I stepped in shit, I'd be like, hey, you know what? I stepped in shit. If I thought I asked a stupid question, I would say I asked a stupid question. I'm a Niner. I'm serious, right? I don't show up for kicks. I'm not showing up to make friends. I'm not showing up to buddy up to a player or to have Shanahan like me or Lynch
love me. You'll be here longer than all of them.
I'm not. That's not my agenda. My agenda is I want to see the team win. I want to be as passionate about the team winning as the players on the team, as the coaches, as the owner, as the fans. I want to have that passion. So I watch it, but I want to win, man. And all my questions are all about in the name of helping the 49ers win.
Okay. I mean,
I know that sounds kind of like I'm like the super fan, but I am a super fan. I grew up in the Sunset District. My dad was a Niner fan. I'm a lifelong Niner fan. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, even though I scouted professionally and I feel like I know a little bit about what I'm watching, but I'm not going to pretend that I don't have an emotional interest or some kind of vested interest. I'm emotionally invested in this. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And financially, by the way, because the radio station and my YouTube channel do better when the 49ers go to the playoffs in the Super Bowl than when they don't. So I am financially and emotionally invested. I try to be professional, but I'm not going to pretend I'm not invested.
Well, again, coming back to the Wilks thing, because I'm not invested.
I know.
It is what it is. I'm just going to provide a critical eye. Now, I'm with you. Life is a lot easier when they win. I'm certainly not rooting for them to lose. It is what it is. But the Wilks thing was entirely, man, you got me in trouble with my boss.
You think so?
Totally. I know so. How about that? I know so. Because it was a whole you know what? You're allowed to actually toot your own horn, tug your own hog, whatever it is they want to call it. Because it was a shit show. It was a shit show about that Chase Young thing in the building. A shit show.
Lynch had a presser the next day.
Correct. It was.
They didn't even. Show. And you know what? I waited. I didn't. Dieter, I'm driving down there that day, and I'm sitting there driving down the 680 going, son of a bitch, I got to ask this question.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait till the end. I'll let somebody
Yep,
else ask
I
the
remember.
question.
I was there.
I'm going to let somebody else ask the question, man. Because somebody else will ask it. Then I don't have to be the bad guy. And nobody asked it. And I
don't
like,
think most people noticed. I'm not going to lie to you.
yeah.
I don't think most people noticed. You noticed, and you had to ask the question. It was a fair question. It was an appropriate question, and it ultimately.
Kev, look at Kev. The only reason you asked the question is because I showed you the clip.
Probably not wrong. Probably not wrong. I don't.
Look at
I
Kev.
don't.
I
all I
deserve
know.
the credit.
I don't
That
know
is
if it was a
beautiful.
shit show on Monday or if it was a shit show on the Wednesday after you asked the question, but I can tell you that Kyle, who had been spending a lot of time in the defensive meeting rooms last year against his will because he did not trust what was happening and ultimately knew immediately, almost immediately, that Steve Wilks was not the right hire and that this thing was spiraling a little bit, and he was trying to hold it together. That Chase Young hot dog in it was a big deal. And you're right, they played a lot harder in the Super Bowl, but I think Steve Wilks is very much somebody who, I mean, I sat with him for 20, 25 minutes ahead of the Super Bowl. The level of contempt.
Where? Was in that little sit down that they had with the whole team?
At the table.
You pulled him aside. That was a great little sit down.
It was. I love those things. And
Yeah,
I just sat there and I just kind of I had 30 questions. And I would just get one in every now and again. And anything that he felt was anything that he could latch on to that he felt was intellectually inferior, he wasn't there to teach. He was there to scorn someone dare questioning Steve Wilks. That was his attitude. And talking to some people, that seemed to be his attitude towards everybody. So Steve Wilks, Steve was saying that Larry got Steve Wilks fired. Steve Wilks got Steve Wilks fired, and it happened long before that. Now, that was probably one of the last straws, but they were scraping the bottom of the barrel there. I mean, Kyle, early on. I mean,
you know who got him fired? Kev.
He deserves the credit.